Do you notice that right-wingers tend to be quite contemptuous towards quote-unquote soft subjects such as gender studies, ethnic studies, sociology, philosophy, and anthropology are basically subjects that are more theoretical and prescriptive as opposed to hard subjects such as business studies, law, economics, language, and science, right? It seems to me that right-wingers, generally speaking, don't regard a subject as a real subject unless it is a hard subject. Ask most right-wingers, at least in America, have quite a bit of contempt towards soft subjects. They'll say, basically you're wasting your time if you go to university and study gender studies or anthropology or ethnic studies, because those things don't have no practical use for you whatsoever. But I think there's another deeper underlying reason why right-wingers seem to have a lot of dislike towards soft subject faculties. And that is because they feel left out. Yeah. Now, the funny thing is that right-wingers seem to have this strange cognitive dissonance in the sense that on one hand, while they seem to disregard the humanities or regard the humanities subjects as being, well, worthless subjects for bohemian students to spend 4 years at a university partying, drinking, and carousing and not learning anything useful that will take you, that will serve you in any technical sense, right-wingers also feel that there's not enough diversity of viewpoints in these subjects. They feel that these humanities subjects are saturated with left-wingers, and simply put, they feel left out, right? They feel, it's kind of like, the fox and the sour grapes, when the fox wasn't able to catch the grapes. He basically regards the grapes as sour. That's the same way I see it, because right-wingers, it's not as if right-wingers dislike the humanities subjects, but rather right-wingers do not fit in well in humanities subjects like philosophy, gender studies, ethnic studies, basically subjects which are theoretical based. See, the thing is that these right-wingers will complain that there's not enough diversity in academia, that at least in the humanities side of academia, it's full of left-wing bigots, right? We don't hear the right-wing viewpoint. But the thing is, right-wingers do not even make a good fit in these subjects, because the right-wing worldview is fundamentally biased. And I know this seems like an extraordinary claim, but let me explain. See, a left-winger does not think in terms of black and white. The left-winger thinks in terms of gray, right? The right-winger has a certain, shall we say, a certain dichotomy, if you will, in his mind. Every right-winger here, doesn't matter whether you're an Eastern or Western right-winger, whether you're a Christian or Muslim right-winger, the conservative views the world in black and white, like this is right, this is wrong. My way is right, other ways are wrong, right? Yeah, basically that's it. So if you were to, if a conservative were to enter the anthropology department with a conservative Judeo-Christian mentality, for example, right? How is this conservative supposed to be teaching about other cultures which do not fit in with their neat, rigid, conservative point of view? Like, let's say this conservative, comes across a tribe, right? Or a culture in which there's no such thing as monogamy, right? See, the liberal, the leftist can just view that as a cultural difference, right? But the right-winger does not just view that as a cultural difference. The right-winger, at least the Western right-winger, views anything that doesn't conform to his Western culture as a cultural shortcoming. So, the right-winger who's all about like, oh, monogamy is the correct way. One man, one woman. Basically, no one man, one woman, no one man, four women, one man, one woman. Or perhaps if you're a Muslim right-winger, one man and four women max. You come across, if you join the anthropology department, for example, you come across material which basically goes against your very, very neatly defined worldview on proper human behavior. You find that, for example, there is a tribe, right, in Africa, which, for example, there are beauty pageants for men in which the winner gets to fuck the judges. How can you teach this to children, to students, without, betraying your sense of contempt? Because let's face it, the right-winger views other cultures that don't conform to his culture with contempt. And the right-winger views his own cultural morass as the yardstick by which to judge whether other cultures are civilized or uncivilized, right? So it's not as if people are pushing right-wing academics out, but rather right-wing academics don't even want to join the humanities departments because right-wing academics are not comfortable with the material that is being produced in these departments, right? Because for a right-wing academic with a very fixed worldview, to have to be able to address the practices in other cultures that fly in the face of his worldview without expressing contempt, to teach it in an unbiased way is very, very difficult. Because like I said, the left-winger views things in terms of, subjectivity, right? The left-winger fundamentally views, truth rather as subjective. While the right-winger, it's just the way the right-wing brain is wired, right? The right-wing brain is wired to view truth as objective and universal, and to view his own culture as universally true for everyone. And so it is very, very difficult for a right-winger to try and to teach humanities subjects in which basically there is no one truth, right? You are, in fact, the presupposition behind the humanities is that we have not arrived at truth yet. We're still seeking it out. While for the right-winger, the right-wing brain works like this. I have already arrived at the truth. And basically, my job is to just justify it to you, right? So that's why you notice that right-wingers tend to gravitate towards more hard, black and white subjects which are factual rather than theoretical, such as law, business studies, or basically economics. Because those subjects basically are not subjects in which the right-winger has to actually leave the comfort zone of his own cultural schemata and basically explore the point of view or explore the practices and traditions of a different culture, which he may find repugnant, right? Because to the right-winger, cultures are not equal. Cultures are only equal, or rather the way to measure how good a culture is based on how much it measures up to his own culture, right? So this is why, right-wingers cannot make a good fit for subjects like anthropology, for example, because they already come in with an inherent bias towards their own culture. No matter whether it's Western or Asian culture, the Western right-winger will have a bias towards Western culture, while the Asian right-winger, the Asian conservative, will have a bias towards Asian culture, right? I'm not saying I get along. I don't get along with Asian conservatives either, right? I find Asian conservatives, while they do have cultural difference, while culturally I have more in common with Asian conservatives than Western conservatives. I find Asian conservatives to be extremely difficult people to get along with as well, yeah? Extremely judgmental and extremely close-minded people. So it's not as if I get along with conservatives from the East either, yeah? So don't think that I'm only picking on Western or African conservatives, yeah? Or Middle Eastern conservatives. I generally find conservatives to be very, very unenjoyable people to deal with, because conservatives tend to be rather disapproving of anything that doesn't fit within the proper values, or rather what they deem as proper in their worldview, which is a very, very narrow road of propriety, if you will, right? So when a right-winger teaches subjects which are supposed to be basically descriptive, like philosophy, anthropology, or things like that, it's going to be very difficult for a right-winger to teach these subjects, because the right-winger already comes in with an inherent bias, an inherent cultural bias and worldview bias, right? Now, even if you look at right-wing philosophers like Jordan Peterson, have this Judeo-Christian Western bias, right? If you listen to them enough, you'll find that at the end of the day, whatever they say, the gist of their message could have been found in a Sunday school teacher's sermon or anything like that. Because fundamentally, being right-wing is not about changing the status quo. It's not about coming up with new, novel ideas. It's simply about taking traditional knowledge or tradition and conventions and basically making tradition and conventions more palatable for the younger generation. That's basically it. It's not about revolutionizing anything or producing anything new, but rather regurgitating same old, basically societally accepted conventions, right? So that's the thing. Another reason why right-wingers in general find subjects like philosophy or anthropology difficult to teach is because they find it difficult to fit in with those disciplines. And some of them, like Jordan Peterson, even want gender studies and ethnic studies to be scrapped, right? They find it difficult because they already have a black and white worldview, right? This way is right, this way is wrong. There is no such thing as, many shades of right. It's either right or wrong, right? So, but the thing is, when you enter a humanities department, you need to leave your worldview, you need to leave your cultural biases at the door and basically go in with an open mind, which is very, very, very difficult for most right-wingers. And look, it's even right-wingers like for example, like a left-winger might be able to look at the culture in which there's no such thing as monogamy and everybody in the tribe fucks everybody as, okay, it's just a cultural difference, but the right-winger will be thinking, immoral, no good. Why are we teaching our children all these immoral things? We must teach them proper moral values. One man, one woman. That's the correct way. So, see, the thing is, the right-winger already has a fixed worldview in his mind, and it's basically he's not going to be able to handle, or he's not going to be able to teach the syllabus in those subjects without bringing in his own personal biases, right? So that's why subjects, hard subjects like mathematics or language or sciences or business studies or economics seem to appeal more to right-wingers, because 1 plus 1 is 2, no matter whether you're in America, England, or Saudi Arabia. And rules of grammar are basically more or less fixed, right? So they do well in subjects, or rather they are comfortable with subjects that don't challenge their worldview. But when it comes to subjects like gender studies or ethnic studies or, philosophy or what else? Basically, yeah, or sociology or anthropology, which will fly in the face of their worldview, they will feel very, very uncomfortable, right? So I guess that's why right-wingers tend to gravitate towards hard subjects. It's not as if hard subjects, or it's not as if soft subject people are pushing right-wingers out, but merely the right-wing mind just cannot handle shades of gray. The right-wing mind thinks in terms of black and white. And if you think in terms of black and white, it's very difficult to do subjects like anthropology or things like that, or gender studies, in which you have to actually suspend your own personal biases, right? And explore theories that might make you uncomfortable because they don't conform to the morass of your culture. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.